So today we consist of probably, we're managing just over 23,000 acres. Majority of it is not ours. We deal with a lot of different rental agreements with both my cousins and neighbors, and we deal quite a bit with our First Nations. And on this map, you can easily see where we're sitting right now, then myself situated here, is right here. And so it's right centralized to where what most of our operations are. And we, through the history of this family, do quite a bit of business with both the Stoney First Nation as well as the Tsuut'ina First Nation. And my father and his father before him worked very, very closely with our First Nations group, and they really helped develop this whole area. We are a farming operation as well as cattle. We right now currently have just over 1,450 head of cows that are our CL cows. We have an additional 750 head of custom cattle that are actually grazing out here on the Stoney Reserve, as well as another 2,000 yearlings that are out there that are on a custom basis. We found that because of where we're at, we're sitting right at about 4,000 foot elevation. Farming for us is difficult, but it's doable. And the problem with where we're at and having that many cattle is that we have to, it's very difficult for transportation to bring feed in here. So as we're fighting the noise, that's my grain bagger, which hopefully we're going to get combining today. We found that we can grow the feed that we need here and do it quite efficiently, especially when you start to amass the acres, as well as do quite a bit of custom farming on top of that. Because again, a lot of my neighbors who are my family relatives, their children have not come back. And they want to maintain the land base, which gives us the opportunity to expand without having to invest in this land. Because as you can imagine, City of Calgary's right here, so to buy into this place is pretty difficult. But a lot of people still want to maintain the agricultural property. So basically, what we grow, we only have 90 days of growing period. And so all we can really grow is oats and barley, as well as the forages that go along, hay and green feed on top of that. So that's really what we're focusing on. Now, part of the noise that you're also going to hear beyond the tractors and trying to get out on the field is we also have the diversification of gravel pits. We have a movie site which we'll go and see as well. And then on top, down below, we do have a backgrounding lot. We'll background all our replacement calves, and we are in fact hormone and antibiotic free. Now that doesn't mean that we don't treat, because we sure do. All our animals are individually identified, and we're able to keep track of which animals have received antibiotics and which haven't. And we feed, right now we're currently feeding with the Spring Creek or Aspen Creek program with the group up in Nectar. So come February, that's about when we need to be emptying out our pens anyways, because that's when we start to think about getting busy for calving. So it really works for us to be able to do the backgrounding here and then ship the cattle off for finishing in the exterior feedlot, because for us to grow that much grain to finish is too much. We're good with what we have. This lot down here could actually hold as many. We've had as many as 2,300 head down here. But we are sitting on top of the Jumping Pound Creek. And the creek is one of only 3 tributaries into the Bow River. And as you can imagine, the City of Calgary kind of watches really closely what goes in and out of that creek. So we felt that with 850 head, we sit in a good position to be, we're constantly monitoring the water quality. We have Trouts Unlimited that we're working with, and they're monitoring, and even Shell is monitoring the quality, because they have a big plant that sits just in between that right there. Is a great big huge sulfur extraction plant, and so they are constantly monitoring the water on the Jumping Pound Creek as well for us. We have been accused a number of times of E. coli pollution into the creek. Every time that we've been accused, because of the allies that we have, we've been able to demonstrate that it's not the cattle and not the feedlots that are causing the issues, and in fact it usually turns out to be septic systems that are coming from a lot of these developments just outside of Cochrane. So it's been good to come together with groups that are willing to help work with us and not have to be the sole defenders of what we are doing here, and that kind of relationship is really starting to work. I guess what we'll show you today is once we'll load back up on the bus, and we'll take you down through right into the heart of our ranch. One of our biggest operations right now is, or our diversifications is in fact a movie center that we have. We have one of the largest western back, they call it a back lot set. It's got a town, and right now Hell on Wheels is filming there. today is the one and only day that they're probably not filming, which is good for us because that means we kind of get to get close, because normally you'd never get within 20 miles of it because they have really strong copyright rules. But I'll be able to show you some of the impact that can have on a ranch and on the operations, because we struggle to remain agriculture, and that's our main focus. We've got lots of neighbors that don't appreciate the traffic that can generate, because on a good day there'll be 100. They know the traffic counts can get up to about 400 cars a day on some of these rural roads. And it is a little bit of a challenge, and it's tough to keep all your neighbors happy when you kind of have that kind of impact on them, but most of them on average are pretty good, and the county's been really good with working with us to try to mitigate some of those problems. That's why you see some of the calcium work that's being done. It's a fine line because, again, being so close to Calgary, we want these roads in good condition because of the activities that we have, but you make them too good and all of a sudden you got too much traffic here. Our main weaning facilities are just up on that hill over there. And when it comes time to bring calves into this feedlot, part of the natural programs, we need to leave those calves out on grass for about 8 weeks. And it works perfectly for us. The calves will start coming in here in the next 2 to 3 weeks. And when it's November, December, we have to literally bring those calves into the feedlot via the roads. And when you come head on with a bicycle with 400 head of calves, it's not a good mix. And the worst part is, the reason you saw the nice big blue sign outside of our gate, the reason that's happening is because they really want to bring the Trans-Canada Bike Trail here, because they've decided they'd like to bring the public into the ranching communities to show them what rural Alberta looks like. So it's going to be one of those great challenges that we have as we try to work with them. They don't seem to be really open to listening. We have to use our politicians, both our local and provincial politicians, to help be our voice, because it is a federal organization that feels that they are out for the interest of the greater good. And it's going to be interesting when they start building that trail down here, because I promise you, you're going to see my name in the headlines pretty good. So, because there has to be a point where we have to say, I would love to invite people in, but it has to be on terms that work for us. And that just simply doesn't work. So we will continue to work that way. And I guess all these little things have led me to the current position that I lead, and I am the chair of the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef as well. And as you can imagine, it sounds like a really lofty title, but it's a very interesting multi-stakeholder organization that have come to the table to try and define what sustainable beef looks like. And a big component of sustainability is, of course, the social aspect. And we tell our producers most of the time, to ease their nerves, that a lot of that is animal welfare and things like that. But the reality is there's also a strong enough strength with ensuring people that the communications get out to help them understand what it is we do. And so the example being that trail again, without being in open communications, we need our allies to talk to the politicians, to talk to the people, as much as they just flat out won't listen to us as producers or our producer organizations. It takes strength in numbers to get changes in some decisions and opinions, and we're learning that multi-stakeholder organization and collaboration that way seems to be working really, really well. So that's why I'm focusing so much time these days on trying to define what that means and what that looks like.
How much of your time does that take up, all those extra political things?
Well, there's definitely been, I can't tell you because I don't know. I seem like I'm focusing on that quite a bit, but we are in startup phase. We're really, not only are we trying to define it here in Canada, but because we're one of the first, we're also working very closely with the global side of it. So we don't want to be building something that's going to create this whole new level of bureaucracy at the same time, but we need to build something that's going to satisfy the consumers. And the consumers in this case really are the companies like McDonald's, like Loblaws here in Canada, some of the big retailers, Walmart. They're going to do something whether we're ready for it or not. And they've given us the opportunity to help kind of slow that process down and do it in a way that's going to be practical at the ranch and farm level first. They're going to give us a little window to do that. But if we don't come up with a solution very short term, and meaning within the next year and a half, we'll start to see some mandates come down, and I don't think as an industry it will be very healthy for us. It'll be costly.
Is the feedlot sector involved to any extent?
Very much. You bet. It's definitely a perception right now that in Canada, for example, that the Canadian Cattlemen's is driving this, but for every step of the way, one of the good things about being an independent chair, I'm sitting on that board as an independent individual. I don't represent anybody but basically ranchers and what I do. So it gives me the opportunity to say, wait a minute, we have other partners here. And definitely along this route, we are making sure that the national cattle feeders are being heard, and their programs and their things are being included in this. The idea is to come up with a platform that will allow all these different types of programs that everybody's already using and just incorporate them, because we don't want to create something new. So we're trying to make sure that we're not leaving anybody behind at the same time.
Anybody have any further questions?
Can you mention something about your team, your human resources, opportunities, challenges, and who works for you?
Here at the ranch?
Yeah.
You bet. There is, like I said, we've got all this land and cows and stuff, and there's 3 of us that work full-time on the cows. Again, that's me with one hat, and then the same 3 guys and plus 1 work on the farming side of it. So I mean, there's 9 of us in total that work here full-time. In the summertime, we do have summer help that comes in, and we do, on contract basis, for example, fencing and things like that, do use a lot of our First Nations members, the Stony members especially. We do work very closely with them and try and help them, teach them how to operate cattle out there. One of the unique situations that we've got out there is that there's no fences, and this is basically a township of open ground. But it's absolutely amazing to work with these families, because the grandfather, and they very much respect the hierarchy in a family, will come out with us and say, okay, from this tree to that rock to that hill to that knoll is our families. And so you kind of jot it down, and actually what I did is that the past couple of years we've been going out with handheld GPSs and marking these. Then you go to the next family, who's the next one, and I kid you not, it's exactly the same line, but to the west. And these old traditional families know exactly where their pieces of land are, but it's never once been mapped out. So now we've been able to take that GPS information. I use the FCC program, and so on my Farm Pro, I put it on my GIS, and we've been able to literally map it out, map these fields out. There are a few overlaps because a lot of the newer families that have come in have through various, usually it's trading, or they have in fact purchased pieces off the great aunt somewhere along the line, but sometimes they have papers and sometimes they don't. So in any place where there's a conflict, right now the monies that we owe we pay on a grazing and animal unit basis, and so the monies that are due on that particular location where there's conflict, we've got the band holding that in trust until we have a way to mediate who actually owns it and how we document that it is. But the majority of the families are really happy with this. And again, any of the kids that want to, it's been good twofold, because the younger people are starting to see and recognize that they do actually have some sort of sense of ownership out there, and they recognize that their input is important now, and they're carrying on the tradition that their families 2 or 3 generations before used to farm and ranch out there, but they've just lost that in the past 2 generations. So it's been a great opportunity to bring them along, teach them what they have, and teach them how to move it, to advance at the same time. So it's been an interesting project.